Alright, so this is our last discussion for endocrine before the prelims. This is diabetes mellitus. Okay, so the major endocrine gland that is actually responsible for this is, of course, is the pancreas. I said before that pancreas is both an exocrine and an endocrine gland. Now, being an endocrine gland, it is actually made up of cells called alpha cells, beta cells, and theta cells on the islets of Langerhans and the pancreas. Okay, the alpha cells are secreting glucagon. Okay, and this is the one responsible for increasing, okay, increasing glucose in the blood. If, of course, if there is a need to, increasing glucose in the blood if there is a need to. Now, beta cells are producing insulin. Ito naman ang responsible for decreasing glucose in the blood. So yung kanilang function is opposite. Okay, and the delta cells are secreting somatostatin. Somatostatin that is actually regulating the glucagon and the insulin in our blood. Okay, so these are the cells of the islets of Langerhans. Okay, so pag sinabi natin diabetes mellitus, okay, what is the problem here? This is a metabolic disorder characterized by hyperglycemia, okay, due to an insulin problem. So the problem is really an insulin. There is lack of insulin or ineffective insulin. Kaya anong result? It results to hyperglycemia. Now, is it also possible that if there is increasing glucagon in the blood, there is also hyperglycemia and there is also diabetes mellitus? The answer is yes. Oo. Pero they found out already in studies that even before a patient will have problem on glucagon, the primary problem would have been on insulin. So ang pinaka-primary problem talaga natin dito ay insulin. Okay. Let's talk about their function, specific function. Sabi natin yung glucagon nakakataas ng glucose, yung insulin ay nakaka-decrease ng glucose. Now the question is how? Okay? So this is the action of our insulin. Okay? So ganito yan. Okay? This is the healthy pancreas producing insulin. Okay? The insulin will help the glucose to enter the cell. Once insulin binds with its receptor, the glucose enters the cell. Now, in patients with diabetes mellitus, the problem is on insulin. Either there is no insulin. So if there is no insulin, glucose cannot enter the cell, or there are insulin or there is insulin secretion, but these cells become insensitive to the presence of insulin. Okay, the cells fail to respond to insulin. Anong cells ito? These are the liver cells and the muscle cells, which are responsible for uh, using glucose as a source of energy. So again, the insulin will help the glucose to enter the cell. Once the insulin binds with its receptor, then glucose can enter the cell. So pag walang insulin, glucose cannot enter. Kung may insulin nga, tapos the cells are not responsive to insulin, then wala ring effect yung insulin natin, di ba? So that will result to increased blood sugar level or hyperglycemia. Okay? Gagamit ako ng whiteboard so I can discuss further. Okay? So we can do our pathophysiology here kasi medyo mahaba itong pathophysio na to. Marami kasing signs and symptoms ito. Okay? Let's talk about the etiology first. Okay? Let's talk about the etiology according to the types of diabetes mellitus. So what are the types? No, number one is called the type 1 diabetes mellitus. Okay. This is actually being referred to also as juvenile diabetes. Okay. Because usually start in the young, or usually it can start even from childhood. Okay? We used to call this insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus noon, but we do not want the term anymore. We do not want the term anymore because many type 2 patients now are dependent on insulin. That's why we don't want that term anymore. Okay. The problem here is, what is the etiology? The problem is that there is lack of insulin secretion. Walang insulin secretion. Bakit? Well, we do not know the cause. Idiopathic. Or it can be autoimmune, as there may be antibodies that are destroying the beta cells. Ba? O kaya naman daw, it can also be hereditary. Diba? So, we cannot question the genetic predisposition of a person to an illness. Diba? So, these are possible risk factors. Right? Okay, and etiology as well. So, the problem with type 1 diabetes mellitus is actually the quantity of insulin. There is lack of insulin. The quantity of insulin, that is the problem. Okay. With type 2 DM, okay, type 2 diabetes mellitus, nung araw, tinatawag din tong non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. But again, today, we do not want this term anymore. We do not want this term anymore because there are many patients now with type 2 and IDDM, non-insulin. There are many patients now who are dependent on insulin. Type 2 patients now are using insulin. Sa type 2, what is the etiology? Well, we do not know the exact etiology. So, idiopathic din to. Okay. But the risk factors include, number one, the most important is family history. At ang family history dito sa type 2 diabetes, first degree. Tatay, nanay, kapatid, anak. Ayan, family history. Tatay, nanay, kapatid, anak. First degree. Mas mataas ang family history dito sa type 2 kaysa sa type 1. Okay. Another one is obesity. Aray po. Obesity. Okay. So these two are very important risk factors for type 2 to develop. Now, in a type 2 patient, the problem is not the quantity of insulin. The problem is the quality of insulin. There is insulin secretion, pero the problem is, number one, there may be slow release of insulin. Mabagal ang pag-release ng insulin. Number two, the cells are insensitive to insulin. The cells are insensitive or they are not responding to insulin or they are tolerant to insulin. Anong cells uli yun? Muscle cells and muscle cells and liver cells. Very good. And number three, may insulin ka nga but there is an ineffective insulin. So ang problem natin is not the amount of insulin, but our problem is actually the quality of insulin. So that's our type 2 diabetes mellitus. But it can be also caused by diet, diba? High fat, high cholesterol, high carbohydrate, or high glucose diet. Mahilig sa soft drinks, mahilig sa matamis, ice cream, that is really very true. Okay? So this is our type 2. Napakarami ng risk factors that may be associated with it. Okay. Okay. Sa type 1, pag-compare natin itong dalawa, diba sabi natin ito juvenile. So in type 1 diabetes mellitus, the onset is abrupt. The onset is abrupt. Usually yung mga bata, hinimatay, dinala sa ospital, tapos na-diagnose na may type 1 diabetes. Ganon kabilis. Pero pag type 2, the clinical course is gradual. Dahan-dahan. Hindi nga napapansin ng patient na nag-develop na siya niyan. So yung isa, the onset is abrupt. Itong isa, the onset is gradual. Okay. There are other types of diabetes mellitus. We have what we call gestational diabetes. Okay. So pinag-aralan nyo ito siguro sa OB. Pag sinabi natin gestational diabetes, this happens only during pregnancy. During pregnancy up to the period of puerperium. That is 6 weeks after giving birth. Kung ang patient natin may diabetes na, tapos nabuntis, that is not gestational DM. So gestational DM is really during pregnancy. And what is the risk factor for this? The risk factor for this is the presence of human placental lactogen. This is one hormone produced or secreted by the pancreas. Okay, and this human placental lactogen will actually decrease, okay, decrease, sorry, that's correct, decrease the sensitivity of cells to insulin. Again, anong cells? Liver cells and muscle cells. Okay, so these are the different, ito yung, uh, ito yung hormones that will actually make us susceptible to diabetes during pregnancy, yung human placental lactogen. Okay, and meron pang isang type ng diabetes mellitus. The last type of diabetes mellitus is called DM associated with other conditions. So here, diabetes mellitus becomes secondary. Wala naman talaga siyang diabetes. But because of these conditions, you can see the signs and symptoms of diabetes mellitus in this patient. So number one is what we had talked about, the chronic pancreatitis. Okay. Sa chronic pancreatitis, there has been too much destruction of your pancreas. So kapag there is too much destruction of the pancreas, sirang-sira na yung mga beta cells, lahat sira na. So the patient may also show signs and symptoms of DM. And the other one is Cushing's disease. Pag-uusapan din natin to, or Cushing's syndrome. Okay. So pag sinabi natin Cushing syndromes or Cushing disease, there is too much release of cortisol. Cortisol is another hormone that can also increase the level of blood glucose. So itong dalawa na to, the diabetes mellitus becomes secondary. It becomes secondary to a cause. Okay, secondary to a disease. Okay, so this is another type of DM. And then we also have classifications such as pre-diabetes. Okay, in pre-diabetes, wala pa talaga siyang diabetes mellitus. Kaya lang nahusgahan na siya. Nahusgahan na. So, anong ibig sabihin? Ibig sabihin, if you have these two traits, number one, strong family history, nanay, tatay, kapatid, anak. Okay, strong family history. Okay, and you are obese, ayan, meron kang obesity, then you already have that pre-diabetic type. So, meron ka ng pre-diabetes. So, itong dalawa na to, very, very important for classification. Ma'am, ang pre-diabetes ba, tinitreat mo? Hindi. But you are actually telling the patient to modify lifestyle, diet, weight reduction, exercise, etc. Okay, so these are the different types of diabetes mellitus and their etiology. So the exact etiology, we actually do not know, no? But it can be quantitative, it can be qualitative. So the problem really is the glucose cannot enter the cell. So kung ito yung cell, sabi natin, dahil yung insulin kailangan for the glucose to enter the cell para makapasok sa cell, to enter the cell. Kasi ang kailangan natin dito is the presence of insulin. Di ba sabi natin kanina, the insulin will bind with the receptor on the cells, okay? And once they bind together, glucose can enter the cell. Kasi kung wala kang insulin, glucose cannot enter the cell and glucose stays outside the cell. Pag sinabi nating outside the cell, di ba ito inside the cell, ang tawag dyan, intracellular fluid compartment. Pag sinabi natin outside the cell, that's extracellular fluid compartment, di ba? Tapos sabi natin, meron tayo tatlong compartments dito sa labas, di ba? Ano nga ito? Meron tayong interstitial. This is in between the cells. Okay, interstitial space. Tapos we have the space inside the blood vessel. We have intravascular space. Okay, and then we have the space in special areas. Okay, ang tawag natin, transcellular space. So, ibig sabihin, ma'am, pag sinabi natin mataas ang glucose outside the cell, sa lahat ng spaces na to mataas, the answer is yes. Pero syempre, pinakamadaling kumuha ng sample sa blood para ma-identify natin if there is increased glucose outside the cell. Kasi kung may problema tayo sa insulin, hindi makakapasok ang glucose. So kung hindi makakapasok ang glucose, mataas ang glucose sa ECF sa lahat ng spaces na to. Okay? Saan ba mas madaling kumuha ng sample? Dito sa intravascular space, di ba? Sa intravascular space, then glucose can easily enter the cell, right? Okay, so this is how the insulin acts for glucose to enter the cell. So kung hindi makakapasok, tataas yung glucose sa cell. So what could be the different signs and symptoms? O let us do the pathovision. Medyo mahaba ito ha, dahan-dahan lang, but please listen and learn. You can always play back the recorded lecture para mas maintindihan natin. Okay. Dito ko na siya uumpisahan. Okay. Lagay na lang natin dito yung etiology. Sinabi na natin yung different etiology, di ba? So what will happen now? Glucose cannot enter the cells. Okay. Anong cells? Okay, liver cell at saka muscle cells. The glucose cannot enter the cell. This is our first line. So if the glucose cannot enter the cell, so therefore, glucose stays outside the cell. Lagyan natin to. Glucose stays in the ECF, outside the cell, extracellular. Tataas ba ang glucose sa blood? Oo, kasi ECF yung blood, di ba? Okay, so what will happen? There is hyperglycemia. Lastly, this is the pathogenesis of diabetes mellitus. Hyperglycemia is the one that will get to a lot of different signs and symptoms. So this is how the disease develops. So ito talaga yung uumpisahan ng lahat ng mga clinical manifestations. Okay? So pag mataas ang glucose sa blood, you know glucose in the blood will exert osmotic pressure. So glucose exerts osmotic pressure. So there is increased osmotic pressure. Okay? Lagay natin ha, hyperosmotic condition of the blood. Pag sinabi natin hyperosmotic condition of the blood, mataas ang osmotic pressure inside the blood vessel. And when you say osmotic pressure, that is the pressure that will actually attract fluid into the blood vessels. Diba? So, maa-attract yung fluid into the blood vessels. Okay? Lagay natin. Fluid enters the blood vessels. Okay? Pag nag-enter ang fluid sa blood vessel, dadami yung tubig sa loob ng blood vessel. Obvious ba? So, that can lead to what we call hypervolemia. So, marami kang tubig sa blood. So, pag marami kang tubig sa blood, anong gagawin yung kidneys ngayon? Natural, the kidneys will have to remove excess water. Diba? Lagay natin. The kidneys remove excess water. Diba? So, lalagay natin, there is increased blood flow to the kidney. Wait, this is better. So, there is hypervolemia, there is increased blood flow to the kidneys, para mas maintindihan natin. Pag mas maraming blood sa kidney, yung blood ba na pumupunta sa kidney, mataas ang sugar? Oo naman. Oo naman. Okay, lalagay dito ha. So, the kidneys cannot reabsorb excess glucose. Hindi niya ma-reabsorb yung excess glucose kasi nga ang daming glucose. So what will happen? There will be increased glucose. Iiihi na yan, di ba? There is increased glucose in the tubules. There is increased glucose in the tubules. Nako, what will happen to the glucose in the tubules? The glucose attract water into the tubules. Ang tawag natin doon, osmotic diuresis. Kasi nag-a-attract siya ng maraming tubig dun sa tubules. So that's osmotic diuresis. That will cause the patient to urinate a lot. The earliest cardinal sign of diabetes mellitus is polyuria. Ihi siya ng ihi. Alam niyo, sasabihin ng pasyente sa'yo, kaya naman ako ihi ng ihi kasi inom ako ng inom. But actually, it's the other way around. Kaya siya inom ng inom kasi ihi siya ng ihi. Pagka nagdi-deny yung pasyente of the polyuria, you ask the patient, how many times do you urinate at night? Ang tawag natin doon ay nocturia. Nocturia means there is frequent urination at night, more than twice. So pag 2 beses kang tumayo sa gabi at naihi, okay lang yun. Kasi yung una gabi, yung pangalawa, umaga na. Pero these patients will have increased urinated 3 times, 4 times, 5 times per night. Hindi normal yun. At kaya siya nauuhaw kasi ihi siya ng ihi. So the polyuria will actually cause dehydration. Natural, ihi ka ng ihi. And dehydration will stimulate the thirst center. Stimulate the thirst center. So ano gagawin ng pasyente? E di iinom siya ng iinom, nauuhaw siya eh. So the second cardinal sign is polydipsia. So the first cardinal sign is polyuria, the second cardinal sign is polydipsia, and the third one is polyphagia. Correct. That is the 3 P's of diabetes mellitus. Inom ng inom, ihi ng ihi, kain ng kain. Bakit siya naman kain ng kain? Because glucose cannot enter the cell. So you decrease the nutrition in the cell. Pag decrease ang nutrition sa cell, what will happen? There is intracellular hunger. Intracellular hunger. Magugutom yung cells, di ba? So pag nagutom yung cells, what will happen? Natural, the intracellular hunger will stimulate the appetite center. So ang gagawin ng pasyente, kakain ng kakain. That cardinal sign of diabetes mellitus is called polyphagia. So inom ng inom, ihi ng ihi, at kain ng kain. Anong nauna dyan? Nauna dyan yung polyuria. Polyuria, polydipsia, at saka polyphagia. Anong tawag dito? The 3 P's of diabetes mellitus. These are the cardinal signs of diabetes mellitus. Polyuria, polydipsia, and polyphagia. Sabi ng iba, kung sino pa yung may diabetes, siya pa yung kain ng kain. Diba? Hindi nila mapigilan. Klase ang tatakaw nila. Klase hindi sila matakaw. They are really hungry. Their cells are really hungry. Pagka wala kang diabetes at kain ka ng kain, yun ang tawag doon katakawan. Hindi polyphagia ang tawag doon. Ang tawag doon, gluttony. Ang kasalanan pa yan. So ito yung 3 P's of diabetes mellitus. But you know, when patients come into us, sasabihin sa atin, di ba sasabihin natin, bakit po ba kayo pumunta dito sa ospital? Ano po bang complaint natin? Wala namang pasyente ang magsasabi sa'yo na, kasi po ma'am, meron akong polyphagia, polyuria, at polydipsia. Wala namang ganon. Walang magsasabi sa atin, right? Oo. Ang sasabihin sa atin, di yan. Sabi mo, galing-galing niya. Alam niyo yung polyuria, polydipsia, walang ganon. So, anong sasabihin sa atin ng pasyente natin? Ang sasabihin ng pasyente, ganito, alam niyo, Dok, kain naman ako ng kain, pero pumapayat ako. That's the obvious one, di ba? Kain ako ng kain, pero nanghihina ako. At saka madali akong mapagod, pero kumakain naman ako. Ayun ang reason. So, di ba, ito yun eh. Nagdi-decrease ang nutrition sa cell. Dahil decrease ang nutrition sa cell, there is decrease use of glucose as energy. So what will happen? So the patient will have fatigue, the patient will have weakness. Okay. So you cannot store glucose and convert glucose to fats, di ba? Kasi magdi-decrease yung nutrition sa cell. So what will happen? So there is decrease fat deposition. Okay. Hindi mo ma-convert yung glucose into fats. Okay, and then yung glucose mo, puro ginagamit mo lang siya as energy. So what will happen? The patient will have weight loss. Siguro mas maganda kung lagyan natin ng decrease glucose transformation into fats. Bakit ma'am? Sobrang glucose ba? Pwede bang maging fat? Oo. There is decreased fat deposition, and finally, there is weight loss. Alam mo, Dok, kain ako ng kain pero pumapayat ako. Madali akong mapagod at saka nanghihina ako. Pero malakas naman akong kumain. You know, patients would usually equate increased appetite to a healthy state. Mali, di ba? Kahit ganda yung appetite mo, hindi ka tumataba, mahina ka. Bakit? Kasi hindi mo naman nagagamit yung glucose sa loob ng cell, nasa labas lang siya. So ano mga nursing diagnosis natin dito? Ay, fluid volume deficit, may dehydration ka, di ba? Imbalanced nutrition, less than the requirements. Very good. Fatigue is a nursing diagnosis. Activity intolerance is a nursing diagnosis. There is risk for fall or there is risk of injury related to weakness. Yan lang ba ang signs and symptoms ng diabetes mellitus? Hindi. Pwede bang mabulag ang pasyente? Yes. Pwede bang ma-stroke? Oo. Mag-heart attack? Magkaroon ng gangrene at hindi na gumaling yung gangrene? Pwede ba yung maputulan ng paa? Pwede. Pwede bang magka-kidney failure yan? Pwede. Pwede bang magka-hypertension yan? Yes. Ang dami-daming signs and symptoms ng diabetes mellitus. Let us try to do that, ha? Okay, I hope you are writing. Please take down notes, no? I'll change the page now. Pag hindi ka pa tapos, i-pause mo lang tong video, tapos magsulat ka. O, kailangan namang hintayin kita. Nagre-record lang ako dito, di ba? So, saan tayo mag-uumpisa? Doon ko na umpisahan na hyperglycemia. Iduduktong mo na lang to sa hyperglycemia natin kanina. Okay? So, anong nangyari kapag may hyperglycemia? O, eto na. What will happen? There will increase viscosity of the blood. Very good. Increase viscosity of the blood. Okay. Pag nag-increase ang viscosity ng blood, what will happen? There is increased blood pressure. So there is hypertension. Increased blood pressure. Diba? Kasi increase yung blood pressure, hypertension. O ano pa? Pag-increase ang viscosity ng blood, there is stasis of blood. Stasis. So, ano ibig sabihin ng stasis? Stagnation, slowing down of circulation. Mabagal ang circulation. Stasis or stagnation. You slow down the circulation, decrease ang blood flow. Diba sabi natin, pag-decrease ang blood flow, the blood becomes hypercoagulable. Okay, hypercoagulable. Madali yang mag-clot. Okay? Tapos yung hypertension, madaling magkaroon ng endothelial injury. Okay, naalala mo to? Yung endothelial injury, yung stasis ng blood, yung hypercoagulable state, 1, 2, 3, ang tawag dyan, Fairchild's triad. Fairchild's triad is the triad of triad that make the patient susceptible to what? Ayun, very good. So, itong tatlo na to, 1, 2, 3, lalagay ko itong 1, 2, 3 na to. Ano yan? Fairchild's triad. And Fairchild's triad make the patient susceptible to thrombus formation. Diba? Naalala mo yun? So, ito yung Fairchild's triad. Endothelial injury, stasis of blood, hypercoagulable state, pwedeng mag-form ng thrombus. Thrombus ba ay abnormal clotting? Yes. Okay. Anong blood vessels ang maapektuhan? All blood vessels are affected. Lahat ng blood vessels pwedeng mag-cause ng thrombus. Malalaki man o maliliit man. Okay. Ang sabi sa atin, kapag large blood vessels daw ang involved, ang tawag ay macroangiopathy. Kapag small blood vessels ang involved, ang tawag ay microangiopathy. Microangiopathy. O tanong, ano namang mga large blood vessels ang affected? Naku, di lahat. Pwede bang cerebral vessels ang affected? Oo. So, pwede bang ma-stroke ang patient? Yes. Ang coronary vessels ba pwedeng maapekto? Yes. Pwede bang mag-coronary artery disease or MI? Oo naman. And peripheral vessels may also be affected. So, the patient may develop peripheral vascular disease. Ang dami pwedeng mangyari sa patient. Okay. Yung mga small blood vessels, ano po yung mga blood vessels na pwedeng maapektuhan? Retinal vessels may be affected. Ito yung nagsusupply sa retina, yung ating, yung sa mata, para makakita ka. So this can lead to what we call retinopathy. Then we have the renal vessels. Okay, yung renal vessels naman, nakaka-apekto sa kidney. So the patient may develop nephropathy. There are many diabetic patients who develop kidney complications. Kaya dalawa lang naman ang mga cases natin ng chronic kidney disease. Number 1, hypertension. Number 2, diabetes mellitus. These are the signs and symptoms. Naku, pwede ba silang magkakatarak? Sugat na hindi gagaling. Oo eh. Bakit hindi gumagaling ang sugat? Naman, malapot nga yung dugo eh. So there is, lagay natin slowing of circulation. Diba? Mabagal ang circulation. At dahil mabagal ang circulation, there is poor wound healing. Diba? Mahirap gumaling yung sugat. There is poor wound healing. Kasi pati gamot, mabagal ang distribution. O kapag poor ang wound healing, pwede bang mag-gangrene formation? Oo, pwede bang magkasugat na hindi nagagaling yung sugat? Oo. And if you're going to actually assess for gangrene, especially in the food, yung iba kasi tinatago nila, nagme-medya sila. You have to really look at it. Yung iba tinatago nila kasi mabaho talaga yan. Malalim, mabaho. So yung iba, nagsusuot ng sapatos. May pasyente akong ganyan. Hindi ko talaga siya tinantanan kung hindi niya hinubad yung medyas na yun. There was really a very big gangrene. Paano natin masasave yun? I-assess mong mabuti. One important assessment for gangrene is check for pulses. If pulses are normal, then there is a good circulation. Pag maganda ang circulation, there is a chance for healing. Diba? Okay. Ba't naman nagkakaroon ng katarata? Well, because of hyperglycemia raw, okay, it may cause, ang tawag dito, yung crystallization of the lens. Crystallization of the lens. Yung crystallization of the lens, ito yung nagiging cataract. Because of hyperglycemia, there is crystallization of the lens leading to cataract formation. Cataract formation. Ayan. So, ito yung pwedeng mangyari dun sa patient natin. Okay. So, grabe. Ang dami pala ng signs and symptoms. Yes. Meron pa siyang di ba? Meron pa siyang yung numbness and tingling sensation, parang namamanhid, parang tinutusok-tusok, di ba? Ang tawag doon ay peripheral neuropathy. Okay. Paano ba nagkakaroon nun? Okay. Try natin sa next page ha. Magsulat ka. Kung hindi ka pa tapos magsulat, i-pause mo ang video. Oo. Okay, sabi natin kanina, glucose cannot enter the cell. Cannot, so lagay ko na. Glucose cannot enter the cells. Anong cells? Liver cells and muscle cells. So what will happen? Glucose stays in the ECF. Lagay ko ha. Glucose stays in the ECF. Nasa ECF yung glucose. Okay. So, tapos, what will happen? Ito ngayon. Diba kapag yung glucose nasa labas ng cell, it cannot undergo normal glucose metabolism. We cannot make use of glucose as a source of energy. So what will happen to this glucose? Glucose outside the cell will be acted upon by an enzyme. Anong enzyme to? This enzyme is called aldose reductase. Okay. And this glucose is converted to become sorbitol. Okay. Sorbitol is an abnormal of product of abnormal, baliktad natin, product of abnormal glucose metabolism. Kasi yung metabolism ng glucose dapat nandun sa loob ng cell eh nasa labas. So naging sorbitol yan. So what is now the effect of this sorbitol? What will be the function or the effect of this sorbitol? The sorbitol will cause it will cause a abnormal shifting, cause an abnormal shifting in the fluid and electrolytes of all nerve cells. So in this way, maapektuhan yung nerve cells. Oo, kasi nag-abnormal shifting, di ba? Naalala mo yan, tinuro ko sa inyo yung sodium in, potassium out, depolarization, repolarization. So that will cause an abnormal shifting. So what will be the effect of this? This will cause neuropathy. So ibig sabihin magkakaroon ng affectation of the nerves. Pwede bang maapektuhan ang central nervous system? Oo. CNS affectation? Yes. Pwede bang maapektuhan ng ANS? Oo naman. Sa ANS, the most common manifestation is orthostatic hypotension. Pero ang pinaka-affected talaga PNS. At ang pinaka-affected sa PNS, sensory. So there is sensory loss. And the first two sensations loss are light touch and vibration. The first two sensations lost are light touch and vibration. So this is our neuropathy. Kasama na naman to sa signs and symptoms ng DN. Yes. So anong recent diagnosis mo? Disturbed sensory perception. There is risk for injury. Kaya hindi niya na pag nakatapak siya ng thumbtacks o ng bala ng stapler, hindi niya nararamdaman. So ano mangyayari? Makakasugat. Pag nagkasugat, hindi nagagaling yung sugat. So there may be the start of gangrene formation. And amputation can be part of the management. Grabe, ang daming signs and symptoms. So, ikaw na magbilog-bilog niyan. So, this is the pathophysiology of our diabetes mellitus. Ang daming signs and symptoms. Isa to sa mga napakaraming signs and symptoms talaga. At maraming nursing diagnosis. When I was a nursing student, I would like to see patients with DM. Dami niya kasi pwedeng nursing diagnosis. Yung mga risk diagnosis, ang dami. And there may be changes in the laboratory na pwede mong gawing nursing diagnosis even if the patient is not complaining about anything. Walang masakit sa kanya, wala siyang signs and symptoms, pero mataas ang blood sugar level, may nursing diagnosis tayo, di ba? Okay, so this is your pathophysiology of diabetes mellitus. Okay? So what are the different diagnostic tests? Okay? I will be discussing most prominent diagnostic tests, Please read your modules and your books, okay? Number 1 is fasting blood sugar. So, pag sinabi natin fasting blood sugar, at least 8 to 10 hour fasting, okay? What is the normal po ba? The normal is 70 to 110 milligrams per deciliter. Yung iba 80 to 120, yung iba 75 to 115, that's okay. So this is the range of the normal FPS. And how do we diagnose patients with DM? Kung ang fasting blood sugar natin ay 126 milligram per deciliter, 126, tapos meron siyang signs and symptoms of polyuria, polyphagia, polydipsia, weight loss, weakness, etc. Therefore, meron na siyang diabetes mellitus. So this 126, ma'am, isang beses lang tumaas. Kung may signs and symptoms, yes, polyuria, polydipsia, polyphagia, yes, may DM yan. Okay, ma'am, paano kung yung fasting blood sugar niya 125? Sorry, 100, so gawin natin ganito, 200 milligrams, ayan, mataas per deciliter, pero wala naman siyang signs and symptoms. Okay, may DM ba siya? Kapag ganyan ang patient natin, ang gagawin mo is to repeat the test. Repeat mo muna yung test. Baka kumain siya. Sabi mo kasi, nurse, wag ka pang kumain. Uminom na lang ako ng kape. O di hindi rin pwede yun. Pag sinabing hindi kakain, hindi rin iinom. Nothing per orem. Huwag mo sabihin sa pasyente mo, nothing, sabi ko nga, nothing per orem. Hindi naman niya yun maiintindihan. Diba? So, dapat very clear ang instruction. So, iuulitin mo na lang, tapos ulitin mo yung instruction. After repeating the test, you still have the same value of 200 milligrams per deciliter, pero wala po siyang signs and symptoms. The patient already has DM. Kahit walang signs and symptoms, baka hindi lang niya napapansin. Kasi as we learned earlier, patients, especially patients with type 2 diabetes mellitus, will have gradual appearance of the signs and symptoms. Dahan-dahan yung appearance ng signs and symptoms. Ayan. So this will diagnose. No? So ang diagnosis is 126 milligram plus the signs and symptoms. You already have diabetes. So fasting blood sugar will diagnose it. No? Pero kung ang pasyente natin may gestational diabetes, hindi pwede yung FBS. Bakit? Sample na natin to. Sample na natin. Okay. Doc, yung fasting blood sugar ng patient ko, 127 milligrams per deciliter. Wala po siyang signs and symptoms. Tapos inulit po namin. Ang nakuha po namin, 125 milligrams per deciliter. Wala po siyang signs and symptoms. Ma'am, hindi yan 126 sa... Oo, correct. So, anong pasyente na yan? Ba't ganyan yan? So, this is what we call the borderline patients. Borderline patients. O kaya yung merong glucose intolerance. Sabi natin, glucose intolerance. So, kapag ka ganito yung condition ng patient mo, anong gagawin mo? Ang gagawin natin dito, ibang test. So, the fasting blood sugar cannot diagnose them. So, anong magandang diagnosis sa kanila? The best diagnosis for them and for patients with gestational diabetes is to have oral glucose tolerance test. Okay, this is your OGTT, oral glucose tolerance test. That is your OGTT. Okay, oral glucose tolerance test. So, how do you do the test? Okay, ganito, magpa-fasting ka pa rin kasi kukuhanan ka ng fasting blood sugar. Tapos, after getting the blood sugar, you will take or drink glucose solution. Magtitimpla sila ng glucose solution, usually mga 75 grams of sodium to 300 ml of water, tamis nun. Tapos iinumin mo yun. Bakit ka pa iinumin ng glucose solution? Because this glucose is a stimulus for insulin release. So kumbaga, challenge natin yung pancreas para maglabas ng insulin. Kaya pinatataas natin ang glucose level. Okay. So, ang gagawin, after 1 hour, after 1 hour, kukuhanan siya ulit ng blood glucose level. After another hour, kukunin siya ulit ng fasting blood sugar level. After another hour, kukuhanan siya ulit. So, ang dami. So, this involves multiple blood extraction. Multiple blood extraction. So, kung ang fasting blood sugar natin ay normal, tapos ito increase, which is expected kasi pinili mo ng glucose, dapat after another hour, bababa na to. Pero pag ito ay increase pa rin, okay, tapos ito ay increase pa rin, ay naku, sigurado na tayo, ang patient natin ay diabetic. Okay, pero pag after 1 hour, this is increased o kaya this is normal, halimbawa lang o tapos this is normal, okay, wala ba siyang diabetes mellitus? Kapag ganyan ang pasyente ko, I would consider my patient as borderline patient. At pag borderline, diet, exercise, ayan. Okay, yung iba nagbibigay na ng oral hypoglycemic agents. Pag type 2 yung patient, pwede ka sa oral. Yung iba naman, lifestyle changes kasi very important yun. Alam mo, kahit na sabi mo sa sarili mo, kahit ka na pumayat, basta mag-exercise ka na lang araw-araw because that improves your blood circulation, di ba? So this is one good diagnostic test for gestational DN and for borderline patients. Okay. Tapos another test is glycosylated hemoglobin test. Ano to? Iba class hemoglobin test. Iba yung ating yung ating diabetes mellitus, hindi naman na gumagaling yan. Ang gagawin mo lang dyan, makokontrol lang natin. Pero hindi na yan gagaling. Now, kung normal ba ang fasting blood sugar ng pasyente ko, normal ba ang sugar niya for the longest time? Not necessary. Madaya ang FPSC. Pwedeng mabago yan linggo-linggo. This is the reason why the glycosylated hemoglobin test will tell us if there is good glucose control. No, kasi baka may dala siyang pang-test. Ayan. Wala eh. Kaya nagkakaroon ng good glucose control to. Iba yan dun sa tinetest natin na hemoglobin test or capillary blood glucose. Iba yun. Itong glycosylated hemoglobin test will tell us if there is good glucose. Ano bang minimeasure dyan? Ang minimeasure dyan is the percentage of glucose in the cell, inside the cell. Of glucose inside the cell. Percentage of glucose inside the cell. Anong cell? Red blood cells. Because red blood cells do not need insulin for glucose to enter. So, pasok ng pasok yung glucose sa red blood cell, pasok ng pasok. Hanggang mamatay ang red blood cell. Eh, ano ba ang lifespan nun? 120 days. So, ibig sabihin, the glycosylated hemoglobin test will reflect the amount of glucose in the blood for the last 3 to 4 weeks. Amount of glucose in the blood for 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, so ito yung amount of glucose in the blood for 3 to 4 weeks, baka 3, 6 months. Kasi ano ba ang lifespan ng red blood cell, di ba? 120 days, that's 3, 6, 9, hanggang 4 months yun. So, ibig sabihin yan kung ano ang resulta ng glycosylated hemoglobin test, that will actually express the amount of glucose in the red blood cell. So, pag mataas yan, hindi controlled ang diabetes, yes. Pag mataas yan, hindi controlled ang diabetes. The normal is about 46%. Okay, so kahit normal ang fasting blood sugar mo, pero ang glycosylated hemoglobin test ay abnormal, so ibig sabihin there is poor glucose control. So the glycosylated hemoglobin test is the best test for control of glucose. And this is, tandaan mo non-fasting. Hindi mo kailangan ng fasting. So you just tell the patient to go to the laboratory at your most convenient time, usually in the morning, non-fasting. Hindi mo kailangan mag-fast. Okay? Yun lang. Ba't maaga ako doon? Well, sa umaga kasi ginagawa lahat ng laboratory. You cannot just go to the laboratory at 2 p.m. and you want your blood be extracted. Yung ibang malalaki, siguro pwede yun. But they have their schedule usually in the morning para sabay-sabay nilang iraran yan. Ha? So, tandaan, ang glycosylated hemoglobin test does not need fasting. Okay? So, itong tatlo na to, very important diagnostic test. Ma'am, how about urinalysis? Sa urinalysis ng mga patient na may diabetes, what you can see is possibility of glucosuria or glycosuria, the presence of glucose in the blood, presence of glucose in the urine, glucosuria or glycosuria. Kaya nakita mo yung mga ihi ng pasyente, nilalanggam kasi matamis daw. Kasi nga may sugar, tinatapon lang natin yung excess glucose. Okay? So this is what we will get from urinalysis. Meron pa silang mga ibang test, yung mga glucose challenge test, parang oral glucose tolerance test yun. Kaya lang hindi marami ang multiple extraction. 2 hours after eating, kukunan lang ulit ng blood. Ganun lang. O yung iba, they are very specific, 2 hours postprandial. Ibig sabihin, 2 hours after kumain, tsaka siya papakuha ng blood. Yung iba naman, doon na nagpapa-schedule. So, sa pagkukuha na ng blood. Okay, so these are the different diagnostic tests. Learning tayo. Okay, let us go back to our slides. These are the cardinal signs of diabetes: polyuria, polydipsia, and polyphagia. Ang nauuna ay polyuria class, ha? At pag type 2 patients, usually the symptoms are gradual, so hindi nila napapansin na nagde-develop pala sila. So these are the usual signs and symptoms. We talk about it kanina, yung pathophysiology natin, but marami pang ibang signs and symptoms ng DM, di ba? And the complications can lead to blindness, heart attack, kidney failure, stroke, dental problem, even sexual dysfunction, the complications of insulin injection, ayan, nerve damage, pwedeng mag-gangrene, pregnancy complication, and amputation. So these are possible complications. Alam na natin kung bakit nangyayari yun, di ba? Okay, and then I told you the diagnostic test already. Now let's talk about the management. So we have the independent and the dependent management. So dun muna tayo sa independent. Dun muna tayo sa independent. Okay. I will go again back to the whiteboard. Ayan. Let's have another page. So, napaka-importante ng independent intervention. Napaka-importante nito. Independent intervention. So, this will include all of your health teaching. Siyempre, ano po ba ang number 1 dyan? Number 1 dyan, of course, is diet. Nung nag-nutrition ka, sinabi sa'yo yung diabetic diet. So, diabetic diet is low sugar, low carbo, low sugar, no sweets, tama ba? Oo. Low fat, low cholesterol, di ba sabi natin, low sugar. So yung diabetic, no? Pero hindi lang basta ganun. Kapag nagpa-plan tayo ng diet for the patient, the family must be included. Hindi pwede kasi mahirap kung yung pasyente lang ang nagda-diet, dapat yung buong family will plan for it. Tapos, do not tell the patient what is bawal. Tell the patient what are the allowed food. Ito yung pinaka-importante. Ito po yung mga pwede nyo kainin. Tapos, you can also modify patient's diet. So, halimbawa, ano ba yung favorite mong food? Gusto daw niya ay burger. So, maybe you can give veggie meat ng parang burger. So, it's actually vegetables pero it tastes like meat. Mga ganun ba? Para hindi totally mahirapan yung pasyente. Okay, so ito po yung mga pwede, ganito po yung mga amount, diba? So, medyo mahirap talagang gawin to, sa totoo lang. Especially with diabetes kasi na meron silang polyphagia. So, kailangan talaga yung health teaching. Very, very, very important. Okay? Number 2 is exercise. Okay. Ano ba ang role ng exercise sa mga patient na may DM? Okay, exercise will increase the use of glucose by the cell. Glucose by the cell. So the exercise will actually help the utilization of glucose para makapasok yung glucose at magamit yung glucose as a source of energy. It improves your circulation, diba? Magiging magiging maganda yung blood flow kasi sluggish yung blood flow kasi viscous yung blood. So exercise will also improve blood flow. Kapag nag-improve ang blood flow, mag-i-improve yung distribution of drugs. So kung meron kang sugat dun sa paa, gagaling yung sugat mo kasi nakakarating yung drug dun sa paa para gumaling yung sugat, right? So this is exercise, health teaching to, di ba? Ano pa? The one very important thing about diabetic care is skin care, especially yung foot care. Okay, unahin natin yung skin care. Bawal lang kamot ng kamot kasi makakasugat ka kapag kamot ka ng kamot, di ba? So, kailangan you have to take care of your skin. Yung foot care, that's also very important kasi you have to inspect the food every day. Okay, kahit may mga scratches lang dyan, scratches or cuts, you have to go to the doctor and have those cuts assessed. Kasi baka malalim pala yun, akala mo mababaw lang. Tapos, bawal ibabad ang paa sa tubig. Di pwede yun. Kasi pag naging moist yun, magiging very good needles for bacterial infection. You have to keep the food very dry. Tapos, wag kang maglalagay ng lotion dito in between the toes, to sa mga gilid-gilid. Kasi pag nag-moist yun, that will be a very good, again, needles for bacterial infection. So, kung dry yung skin, you can put uh, lotion on top, pero hindi between. Tapos pag nagka-cut ka daw ng toenails, you cut it across. Or better yet, wag mong sabihin cut. You have to pile across. Okay? You don't cut, you pile across para malesen. Kasi yung mga ingroin, hindi mo kinukut-kut-kut. Meron akong matandang pasyente na ganyan na may diabetes and she had her own toes, no? Polish, tapos yun, nagkaroon ng ingroin, nagkaroon ng sepsis, namatay, dahil lang doon. Kaya you have to be very, very careful about foot care. Napaka-importante niyan. Di ba? Ayan, ano pa? Diet, exercise, skincare, foot care, what else? O yun, no? Avoid stress. Okay, bakit? Kasi pag nai-stress ka, nag-i-increase ang, di ba, what is the most active gland under stress? Di ba, adrenal gland? Nag-i-increase yung cortisol. And cortisol will increase the level of glucose in the blood. Lahat ng klase ng stress, including illnesses and surgery. Kaya yung mga pasyente na mag-undergo ng surgery, stress yun. So the doctor will have to increase the dose of anti-diabetic meds or even insulin kasi it's a form of stress, wala nang tataas. Kaya kapag nilalagnat yung pasyente, huwag mong hihinto yung kanyang anti-diabetic drugs kasi yung mismong lagnat, yung mismong illness, that is a form of stress that can increase the blood glucose level. So bawal din siya ng may stress. Ano pa ba? Ano pa ba yung mga independent nursing intervention? So, this is actually part of our big health teaching to our patient. Siyempre, ito, avoid alcohol. Ay, siyempre, obvious ba? Beer. Oh, eh, di ba? Mataas din ng carbohydrate. Yan. Di ba? Ilagay mo na rin to. Avoid smoking and all forms of vices. Yan, lagay mo na rin yan. Discuss na nga yung blood, magbabaso constrict pa. Diba? Healthy living. Yun. Yun ang gusto kong sabihin. Live a healthy lifestyle. Ayan na. That will actually summarize everything. Diba? Para maging maganda ang blood sugar level. Right? So this is your independent interventions. Sa dependent intervention, so ang focus natin doon ay drug therapy, di ba? So lalagay natin dito, ano ba yung focus ng management natin, ng drug therapy natin? Ang unang focus ng drug therapy ay replacement. Okay, number one, we have to replace insulin. So anong bibigay mo? Insulin. Okay. Or we need to enhance insulin. Enhance insulin effect. Enhance insulin effect. Potentiate insulin. Okay? Enhance insulin effect. Replace insulin, enhance insulin, o kaya naman decrease glucose. Decrease glucose absorption para bumaba yung glucose, no? Or decrease glucose production para bumaba yung glucose level. So, ito yung focus ng drug therapy. Okay? So, ano bang gagamitin natin? Sabihin muna natin na sa type 1 DM, isa lang ang gamot niyan. Insulin lang. Wala nang iba. Sa gestational DM, insulin lang. Wala nang iba. Sa lactating DM, lactating mothers with diabetes, ang gamot nila, insulin lang. Bakit? Because they cannot take oral drugs kasi yung mga oral hypoglycemic drugs are teratogenic and can cause harmful effects to the babies. Sa type 1, they cannot take oral hypoglycemic drugs. Well, kasi wala silang insulin. Anong i-enhance mo? Wala nga silang insulin. Diba? Kasi the action of oral hypoglycemic drugs is to enhance insulin. Kung wala kang insulin, wala kang i-enhance. So, hindi sila pwede doon. Paano nga binibigay yung insulin? Insulin is given subcutaneous. Dapat ba rotating sites? Yes. Okay, bakit kailangan rotating sites? To prevent lipodystrophy. To prevent lipodystrophy because lipodystrophy will cause erratic absorption of insulin. Erratic absorption of insulin. Okay, so kailangan rotating sites. Merong isang insulin na pwedeng ibigay na subcutaneous na, IV pa. Isa lang yan. That is your regular insulin. Tapos sa libro natin, the newly approved rapid-acting insulin inhalation. Meron na yan. Ang tawag niya Afreeza. This is in the United States. So siguro darating yung panahon na yung mga diabetic nag-i-inhalation na rin, nag-nebulize, no? Oo nga. So, sabi natin, insulin, must be given subcutaneous. Bakit hindi pwedeng oral ang insulin? Because insulin is destroyed in the digestive system. So the gastric enzyme and the gastric juice will destroy the insulin. Kaya pag sinabi ng pasyente mo, huwag mo na yan i-inject sa akin, tutunggain ko na lang yan. Hindi pwede yun because insulin is destroyed in the digestive system. Okay? So, bakit pwede sa buntis? Pwede sa buntis because insulin cannot pass the placenta. So, it will not affect the fetus. Bakit pwede sa lactating mothers? The insulin can pass the breast milk. Actually, the baby can suck the insulin from the breast milk. However, once the insulin is sucked by the baby, the digestive enzymes of the baby will destroy the insulin. So, it will not affect the baby. Diba? Okay, so we need to replace insulin. So let's talk about the different drugs. Balik tayo sa ating slides. Sana mo yung slides ko. Ayan. Wala siya. Ayan, this is insulin. So we have, the insulin is actually divided into the different insulin according to their onset of action. Very short-acting insulin, 15 minutes ang onset, short-acting, 30 to 60 minutes, intermediate-acting, 2 to 4 hours, long-acting, 6 to 8 hours, and very long-acting, Glargine or Lantus. Okay. So again, their classification depends on their onset of action, the onset of action. Ang most common na ginagamit ng mga type 1 DM ngayon, ito ng bago, yung very long-acting, usually Glargine or Lantus. Sila yung nakalagay na sa pen, tapos i-inject na lang. Ang problema lang dyan, mahal. Pero maganda to kasi ito yung onset niya, 1 hour, tapos wala siyang peak. So, ibig sabihin ng walang peak, the level of insulin is dire-diretso lang, isa lang. Okay, all throughout the 24 hours. Diba maganda? Kumbaga yung level niya, hindi siya aakyat, hindi siya bababa. Hindi kagaya nitong iba, tumataas at peak, tapos bababa. Ito hindi. Ang problema lang dyan, mahal yan. And this one, insulin is given after kumain, pag-inject. Pero itong lahat ng to, before meals. So halimbawa, yung very short acting, kailan ng onset, 15 minutes. Kailan ng peak, 30 to 60 minutes. And the duration is 2 to 4 hours. Yung short acting, ito clear ito. Lagi itong tinatanong sa exam, ha? Ang onset ay 30 to 60 minutes. Ang peak ay 2 to 4 hours. Intermediate, ito lagi rin to. Ito cloudy to. Okay, cloudy. 2 to 4 hours. Ang peak ay 6 to 8 hours. Okay. Yung ibang mga patient, pinagsasama nila ang regular at ang NPH. Kasi nga naman, pag pinagsama mo sila, i-add up mo yung duration ng action. Ito 4 to 6 hours, ito 16 to 20 hours. So, what did they do? So, ang ano rin, ang total mo rin ay 24 to 26 hours, di ba? Or 20 to 26 hours. So, ito yung pinagsasama nila. Ang common question sa exam, ano daw ang unang i-aspirate mo? Ang unang i-aspirate mo, yung regular. Kasi clear yun. Yung NPH kasi cloudy. Pag inuna mo yung cloudy, tapos in-inject mo yung cloudy sa clear, magiging cloudy yung clear, mako-contaminate yung regular. So, regular muna ang i-aspirate before yung NPH. Okay, tapos yung NPH, kailan ang peak? 6 to 8 hours. Yung iba nilalagay dito sa peak ng NPH ay 6 to 12 hours. Okay, 6 to 12 hours. Okay, I got this from your MS book, pero sa pharma, it's 6 to 12 hours. So parang halos pareho lang naman, di ba? At ano yung nangyayari sa peak? What is the primary adverse effect of insulin? E di hypoglycemia. Kailan nangyayari ang hypoglycemia? Hypoglycemia happens during the peak. So we need to prevent activities that will further aggravate hypoglycemia during the peak. And we have to look for signs and symptoms of of hypoglycemia during the peak. Okay. Teka, ano ba yung mga signs and symptoms ng hypoglycemia? Ano ba? Madali lang to. Kasi yung signs and symptoms ng hypoglycemia, nararamdaman mo pag nagugutom ka na. Pag nagugutom ka, anong nararamdaman mo? Dok, namumutla na ako, Dok. Kaya, pallor. Okay. Dok, nanlalamig na ako. Cold clamp. Dok, nagtatakikardia na ako. Di ba? O ano pa? Dok, nagpapalpitate na ako. Correct, para kang sympathetic yung palpitation. Dok, nagtetremor na ako. Correct. There is increased hunger already. Nararamdaman mo, nagugutom ka na. Yung iba, sumasakit ang ulo. Ako sumasakit ang ulo pag nagugutom na ako. And worse, ito na, nahihilo na. Tapos ang nahihilo, hinihimatay. Fainting or syncope. Mas maraming hinimatay na hypoglycemia kaysa sa hyperglycemia. In fact, kapag ang isang tao hinimatay, ang una mong itatanong sa kanya, kumain ka ba? Kasi baka nag-hypoglycemia siya, di ba? So during the peak, avoid activities that will further aggravate hypoglycemia. Halimbawa, binigyan natin siya ng regular alas 8 ng umaga. So kailan alas 6 ng umaga. So kailan ang peak? Alas 8 ng umaga, kasi 2 hours, hanggang alas 10 ng umaga, di ba? Okay. So, during the peak, anong gagawin mo? Ay, bigyan mo siya ng snacks. Kasi pag hindi mo siya binigyan ng snacks, mag-hypoglay lalo yun. Diba? Kaya naman, avoid activities that will further aggravate hypoglycemia like exercise. Halimbawa, yung NPH, binigyan natin siya ng alas 6 ng umaga. So, kailan magpipik to? Alas 12 ng tanghali hanggang 6, 7, 8, hanggang alas 2, kung hanggang 12 hours siya, hanggang alas 6 ng gabi. So, kailan ang peak nun? So, 12 ng hapon hanggang alas 6 ng gabi. So, kailangan ba mag-snack siya doon? Oo. And avoid activities that will further cause hypoglycemia like exercise. So, tatandaan mo, do not exercise during the peak kasi lalo siyang mag-hypoglycemia. You know, patients who are exercising are actually being given snacks during that time kasi lalo siyang mag-hypoglycemia. Okay? So again, yung very short, intermediate, long-acting insulin are being injected before meals. Pero yung very long-acting can be injected after meals. What is the primary adverse effect? Hypoglycemia. What is the action of our insulin? To replace insulin. This is given to type 1 patient. Check. to type 2 patient? Check. To gestational patient, DM patient, yes. To lactating DM patients, yes. So, insulin pwede sa lahat. Sa type 1, sa type 2, sa gestational, sa lactating, pwede sa lahat. Insulin. Diba? Pwede na sa type 2 yan. Okay, so this is our insulin. So, how about oral hypoglycemic drugs? Sa oral hypoglycemic drugs are given to patients with type 2 only. Type 2 only. Hindi pwede sa type 1, sa type 2 lang. Okay. So, ito muna tayo. Ito muna. Ayan, tatakpan natin itong nasa ilalim. Tilakpan. Ayan. So, the first group or classification, we have sulfonylurea. Sulfonylurea. So, yung sulfonylurea, merong first generation at saka second generation. Sulfonylureas. Okay. So, yung sulfonylureas, ano ba yung action niya? Number 1, it will increase insulin release. Hindi pwede sa type 1, wala siyang insulin. Number 2, it will increase sensitivity of cells. Sensitivity of cells to insulin. Hindi pwede sa type 2. Wala nga siyang insulin. And number 3, this will actually increase the effect of insulin. Hindi pwede sa type 1 kasi wala siyang insulin. Hindi pwede sa gestational kasi teratogenic. So in other words, the action of this drug, so yun no, nakalagay to potentiate insulin action. So kung ganon, ano ang primary adverse effect? Eh di hypoglycemia rin. And this drug must be taken also before meals. Ano po ang kaibahan ng first generation sa second generation? So yung second generation ay more potent and efficacious. Anong ibig sabihin nun? So, ibig sabihin ng more potent, mas mababang dosage, pero the same ang effect sa iba. At pag sinabi mong efficacious or efficacy, mas konting dose that will attain the maximum response. Kumbaga, 5 milligrams lang, maximal na yung response niya. That's efficacious. Potent naman, mas mababa rin yung doses, pero you get the same response. Halimbawa ito, yung tolbutamide, ito 100 milligrams to. Ang glimepiride, 2 milligrams lang. So the glimepiride becomes more potent than the O generation. Again, pang type 2 lang. Type 2 lang, type 2 lang, type 2 lang. So this is your sulfonylurea. Again, what is the primary adverse effect? Hypoglycemia. So these are the sulfonylureas. Nawala. Yeah. Okay. Then we have the non-sulfonylureas. Okay. So non-sulfonylureas naman, teka lang. Takpan naman natin ito. Yan. Ito naman yung non-sulfonylureas. Yan. So look at the non-sulfonylureas naman. So the non-sulfonylureas, the action is actually divided into two. Yung isa ang action sa glucose, yung isa ang action ay sa insulin. Okay, so isahin natin ha. The most famous non-sulfonylurea is biguanide. And the example of biguanide is your metformin. Kilala mo yan. Okay, still very good and very important drug to control sugar in diabetic patient. This will decrease hepatic production of glucose and decrease glucose absorption in the small intestine. See, the problem is not on insulin. The action is not on insulin. The action is on glucose. You decrease the production of glucose and decrease absorption of glucose in the small intestine. So the primary adverse effect of this is more on GI toxicity. That's why metformin is given after meals. Okay. Now another one is alpha glucosidase inhibitor. This is your acarbose. And just like metformin, look at the action. Acarbose will decrease absorption of glucose in the small intestine. So these two drugs will act on glucose and decreasing absorption in the small intestine. So both of them will have GI toxicity effect. Okay. Ito namang sumunod, thiazolidinones and meglitinides, pioglitazone and repaglinide class. Okay, these are insulin-enhancing agents. So the action is not on glucose, the action is on insulin. Parang ang action nila sulfonylurea, but they are not sulfonylureas. Okay? And then these are the newer drugs, the sitagliptin and linagliptin. Ito maganda to. So these will increase the level of incretin hormones. Yung incretin hormones pala will increase insulin secretion and decrease glucagon secretion. So pinatataas yung insulin naturally, pinabababa yung glucagon by the release of incretin. Actually, very good tong drugs na tong mga gliptins ngayon. And all these gliptins may be combined with metformin and sulfonylureas to control blood sugar level. And of course, the newest is the empagliflozin Jardiance. Ito ano to it will increase the excretion of glucose to the urine. So, imbis na i-reabsorb natin yung glucose back to the blood, ang gagawin ng Jardiance or empagliflozin is to remove it out through the urine. So, papaihi mo sa kanya yung kanyang glucose. So, ma'am, laging may glucosuria yan. Oo, because of the effects of the drug. Ito rin is a very good drug today. Maganda ang kanyang action, maganda ang research sa kanya, mga studies sa kanya. So it may also control the development of complications in patients with DM. But please be reminded that oral hypoglycemic agents are for type 2 only. Hindi pwede sa type 1, hindi pwede sa gestational kasi teratogenic, hindi pwede sa lactating DM kasi it can cause harmful effects to the fetus. So remember that oral hypoglycemic drugs may act on 1, insulin, and 2, they may act on decreasing glucose absorption or decreasing glucose production. So this is your drugs for diabetes mellitus. Okay, sana wag tayong mag-isip na yung ibang mga tao iniisip nila na kapag daw dito, binigyan agad ng insulin yung type 2 patient, malala na raw yun. Hindi ganun. It's not like that, ha? So, hindi ganun. Although we may be starting giving oral hypoglycemic before insulin, pero hindi ibig sabihin ng pinag-insulin siya ay malala na siya. Hindi. The best management for diabetes mellitus is good glucose control. Now, for type 2 patients who are not being controlled by oral hypoglycemic drugs, we may add insulin to our regimen to control blood glucose level. Kasi hindi naman nagagaling yan, nako-control na. Diba? So, I hope you understand something and you learn something today. This will be part of your examination. Tandaan mo yung health teaching, yung mga insulin, yung mga peak of action. Tandaan mo yan. Sama sa exam niyo. Alright? So, I hope you learn something about diabetes mellitus. Please read your books, read your modules, take all your chances to learn. Good luck sa exam. Bye.